Have you ever seen pictures of a landscape after a huge wildfire or a volcanic eruption? It looks like it's game over, right? Just total devastation. But what's so amazing is that it's not the end. It's actually the beginning of one of nature's most incredible comeback stories. It's all about resilience, rebirth, and how life, well, it always finds a way. I mean, really think about it. You've got this scene of what looks like total destruction. So, what happens next? How does a completely barren piece of land transform back into a lush, thriving ecosystem? That's the big question we're going to dive into. And here's the cool part. This whole recovery thing isn't just random luck. Nope. Nature actually has a plan. It follows this surprisingly predictable pattern, kind of like a blueprint for rebuilding from the ground up. And scientists have a name for this process: ecological succession. Okay, so what is it exactly? Well, ecological succession is just the step-by-step process where life reclaims a space. And the keyword here is gradual. This is not an overnight fix. We're talking about a timeline that can take hundreds, or in some cases, even thousands of years. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Nature doesn't just have one playbook for this. It actually has two main paths it can take, and it all depends on the starting conditions. Think of it like this. Are you building a brand new house on an empty lot, or are you renovating a damaged house that still has its foundation? Two very different jobs, right? Here are those two paths. On one hand, you've got primary succession. This is the building from absolute scratch version. We're talking bare rock, zero soil. This is the long game. Then you have secondary succession. This happens when that vital foundation, the soil, is already there, and that gives the whole recovery process a massive head start. Let's look closer at primary succession. You see this in some of the most extreme environments on the planet. I mean, think about fresh lava cooling into rock, or land that's exposed when a glacier retreats, or even a brand new volcanic island rising up out of the sea. These are places where literally no ecosystem existed before. So you have to wonder, how does life even get started in a place like that? Well, it all begins with the arrival of some incredibly tough little organisms. These are the true heroes of this story, the pioneer species. These pioneers, things like lichens and mosses, are basically the ecosystem's first construction crew. They can actually cling to bare rock, and their very existence starts to break it down. Then, when they die and decompose, they create the very first thin layer of soil. They're making the area livable for all the other species that are going to come later. Now let's flip to the other path, secondary succession. This is a whole different ballgame because remember, the soil is already there. This is what happens after a forest fire clears out the trees or when a farm is left abandoned. That soil is just full of seeds and nutrients, basically waiting for a chance to spring back to life. So whether we're talking primary or secondary, this whole process unfolds in a series of predictable stages. It's a journey from just a few hardy settlers all the way up to a complex and bustling community. It all starts with that pioneer stage, with those tough little guys we talked about. From there, you get the intermediate stages, where grasses, shrubs, and small animals start moving in. And all of this builds towards what's called a climax community, a stable, mature ecosystem, like a big old forest. But here's the twist. The word climax sounds so final, doesn't it? Well, it's not. This stable state only lasts until the next major disturbance comes along, the next fire, the next flood, and that just hits the reset button and starts the cycle of succession all over again. It proves that nature is never really standing still. So all of this is pretty cool science, but why does it matter? Why should we care about this cycle? Because it reveals something fundamental about our planet. Its absolutely incredible built-in ability to be resilient. Ecological succession is a vital force for a healthy planet. It's the mechanism that heals environmental wounds. It drives biodiversity by creating new places for things to live. It literally builds and improves the soil. And it creates the foundation for the complex food webs that support pretty much all life, including us. And if you want to see this in action, we don't need to look any further than one of the most famous national parks in the world. Yellowstone is the perfect case study for secondary succession. So, back in 1988, massive fires burned through huge parts of the park. At the time, it looked like a complete catastrophe. But just watch the timeline. By the 90s, the ash had fertilized the soil and the ground was covered in wildflowers. By the 2000s, new pine forests were taking root. And today, the ecosystem there is this incredible, diverse mosaic of habitats. You could even argue it's more resilient now than it was before the fire. That's succession right there.
So, if there's one big idea to take away from all this, it's the sheer power of nature's resilience. A disturbance isn't an end point, it's the catalyst for renewal. The natural world isn't static, it's in a constant state of adapting and rebuilding.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. We always talk about the balance of nature. But if succession shows us that ecosystems are always changing, always recovering, always in flux, what does that balance truly look like? Maybe the balance isn't some static, perfect state. Maybe the balance is the process of change itself.